Let's go. Come on. I always think of this place here as beautiful. Every morning I wake up and look at those mountains to the east and their blue-gray mist. I love it. It's beautiful. The moon coming up behind these locust and walnut trees, especially when it's full. The beauty is intoxicating. Right, Sally? Would you know? Well, they're happy now, all these little critters. Ben wasn't willing at first. He didn't want to work with sheep very much because I kind of pushed him into it to help with the work around the shearing, picking out fleeces, helping me catch sheep, sweeping the floor, bagging the fleeces. And it wasn't until he started actually shearing that he really started to enjoy it. And then it was a whole new technical challenge, physical and technical challenge to do a good job. And he faced it head on, and he's very, very good. I just happen to have 4 more jars of my home roasted coffee in the refrigerator, so we should be good for at least today.
Is that stuff done?
Purists say you should never refrigerate coffee, but I disagree with them.
Would you check the greens, give them a little stir?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they're done.
Are they burned?
No, they're perfect. So what's the give on some bacon?
I don't know how much bacon I got. Let me...
I've got some. The woman I just sheared for recently has a deaf nephew. And he signs, he refers to bacon as, or sausage as dead salty pig. So I think this is a sign for dead salty pig. So he says he wants some dead salty pig.
Is there not a sign for bacon?
You probably have to spell it out.
Well, that is a deficient language if it doesn't have a specific word for bacon.
I think my last batch was better.
Yeah, it's drinkable. I'd put cream in it, though.
Well, you want cream in yours?
Yeah, sure. Mostly what I remember from being a kid is I was kind of the sheepdog. He'd be like, get down the hill, chase those sheep up here. You know, it's like, he was chasing them too, but I was kind of taking orders, so I was more the sheepdog. And I did not like sheep at that point because I was like, why aren't they cooperating? They're so stupid, but you know, clearly when you get outwitted by a sheep, it's not the sheep that's being stupid. So I learned to love them. I like them now, but you better understand what you're doing with a sheep because they will infuriate you if you don't.
There's a lot of driving in this work, a lot of time spent driving. Probably more concerning to me than the expense of the driving is the time driving. I think the previous year I'd driven something like 27,000 miles. And I calculated that I was about just a little bit over 3 miles for every sheep I sheared. You have to go shear them nevertheless. If someone says, I only have 1 sheep, is it worth your while? I'll say, is it worth that sheep's while to be sheared? Every sheep has to find the comfort of being relieved of its hot fleece in the summertime. Back in the early 70s, about the time I came back from Central America from being in the Peace Corps, my parents bought a little handful of sheep, and somebody had to shear them. So my father and I did it, actually out here on the front porch with an old hand crank shearing machine that a friend of ours lent us. And we didn't know anything about it. And we sheared a few of ours. We only had 5 or 6. And then my father and I went to shear for the parents of one of my sister's friends, and he said that there was a guy from Iowa who was traveling through the area who could shear over 100 sheep in a day, Otis Sneathen from Iowa. And I thought, that cannot be right. He was in Haywood County at that time, and we went to see him up on the Upper Fines Creek, and I just wanted to see how this man worked. And it was amazing to watch him. He was smooth, easygoing, well-paced, and just shearing 1 sheep after another like it was nothing. So I introduced myself and asked him if I could bother him enough to learn a little bit from him, and he said, why, sure, just come on in here close by and I'll tell you what I'm doing. He was real inviting. And he said, what have you been shearing with? And I said, a Stuart Oster Shearmaster. He said, did you bring it with you? And I said, yeah. He said, go get it. And I thought, man, this might be right. The sheep shearing season really is just starting. I've done a little bit of Angora goat shearing previous to this and this year because they get done on a 6-month schedule instead of a once-a-year schedule. So this is the beginning of the season. It's still a bit chilly. It's early April. We had summer-like weather in February, but now it's back to seasonably cool days. So the shearing is a little tougher right now because it's cool. The lanolin is sticky and waxy. Shearing is most fun when the temperature is uncomfortably warm because the shearing goes smoother with less pushing through sticky lanolin in the wool. My son Ben usually works with me, but right now he's in Florida shearing. He's getting some of that work done down there before it gets so awfully hot. And there's Seth walking up to where the sheep are penned. I'm jealous of your sweater, Seth. Don't lay that sweater down. Forget where it is, Seth.
Yeah, right.
You might not find it again.
This thing is just a nice sweater.
That's a beauty.
Well, I mean,
Where'd it come from?
Salvation Army.
Perfect. Golly, look at the size of those things. There was something about holding the animal by yourself, shearing all the wool off it, seeing it fall off, something that is an ancient tradition, shearing sheep for their wool. And it was just the mechanics of it, the mechanical clipper, and learning how to operate it all was just sort of something I enjoyed doing. That looks about right. Makes me happy. It's hard work, it's hot work, but if you do a good job, people value your work. They're grateful. If you harvest a clean fleece for them without it being torn up and the animal not being torn up, they're always appreciative, and that's worth a lot to me. But the thing is about shearing is that you don't get to be good at it unless you do a lot of it. And most people will never get enough experience shearing their own sheep to be much more than just barely proficient. Some people will try to do it themselves, and then they'll call you back the next year and say, please, don't have me do this again. The sheep comes to you, or you grab a sheep, it's on all 4 feet, and you roll the sheep over so it's now sitting on its tail, or its dock, as they call it. Both feet pointing up, kind of the way I am here. And you hold its legs up and you shear down the brisket, down the belly, being careful not to cut the teats. You roll the sheep over a little bit, you shear this leg, that's called the first back leg, down to the tailbone, and then you stand up with your foot, your right foot between its front and back legs, holding its head back, and you shear from the brisket up the neck, under the chin, around the neck, around the shoulder. You lay the sheep down on its side, almost on its backbone, and you shear what's called the long blow from the tail up to the top of the head and down the second shoulder. You pull the head up and you go on a diagonal down the second side. Turn your right toe in just a little bit under that shoulder. Give that sheep support, it won't kick as much. Hold its head just right, all the way down to the tailbone, and you let it up, and it runs away and the fleece should be on the floor. And if you do it well, you can do that job in anywhere from 7 or 8 minutes down to under a minute, depending on the kind of sheep you're shearing. Ben and Lydia were born here in '82 and grew up here, helped us with the sheep chores, feeding them in the wintertime, summertime, shearing. And my wife, Barbara, spins wool and knits and weaves, so she's carrying on crafts that are essential crafts to this area. And I've come to realize that wool is probably the most versatile fiber there is. You can wear it in hot weather, cold weather. It lasts long. It won't sustain a primary fire, so it doesn't need to have any fire retardant put on it for your infants in their cribs. And very durable, wonderful material. And it's nice to be able to have animals that produce it and to harvest it. Jealous tip. Come on. Here we go. Well, at least 2 of those girls are pregnant. She is. She's got swelling. This one has swelling. Why don't you go eat? Go eat your breakfast. Go on. What do you think, Tip? We even shear a few guard dogs once in a while. His hair coat doesn't get thick and matted the way some guard dogs' coats do, so he probably won't get sheared this summer, but I have a couple others that I need to shear. Right, Tip? Yeah, you're smart, aren't you? The coyotes here were going nuts last night, and he was out there barking at them. Doing what he's supposed to do. I am a master of my trade, I won't deny it, but I always think of all the people who are that much better than I am, so I'm always trying to get a little bit better. My son Ben got really good when he went to Australia. He spent 2.5 months there. When he came back from Australia, spending that much time on an Australian shearing team, he looked like an Australian shearer. Smooth, very, very good. He's a better shearer than I am because of his experience in Australia. And when I watch him shear, he looks like it's like watching a good piano player play his music. It doesn't look like it's difficult. It looks like, oh, I could do that. And then I watch him and I pick up a cue or from, now and then something he's done that I didn't think about doing. I watch him do it and then I learn and I go back and try it out myself, even though I have lots of more years of experience than he does. But he is very good. And so I learn from him. So it's turnabout. I gave him instruction, now he's instructing me. But that's the way it should be. If your students, whether it's your son or your daughter or somebody else, can eventually get so good that they can give you instruction in the same subject you instructed them, then that's very, very good. Makes you proud. You can drive down a road and you wonder how people live on that farm in there, up that lane. Well, now I had a chance to find out. Going from place to place, never knowing where you're going to be the next night. It was all an adventure that was just great fun. And so here I am, 42 years later, still doing it.